Welcome to Black History for Sleep. Tonight, we gently step into a world that's often forgotten, but never erased. You are a newly arrived enslaved person, disoriented and vulnerable, on a sugar plantation in colonial Saint-Domingue, the French name for what we now know as Haiti, in the year 1789. As the air thickens with memory, as the world outside goes quiet, I invite you to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and if this kind of deep, immersive storytelling moves you, please subscribe to Black History for Sleep. We bring the past to your pillow, one quiet, powerful story at a time. Now, let us begin tonight's journey into colonial Saint-Domingue. The rocking of the ship. It has finally ceased, after what felt like an eternity. A vast, churning emptiness that stole your very breath and your sense of self. You remember the small, stifling space below deck, the darkness, the endless creaking of wood, the scent of despair and sickness clinging to every surface. Now a different kind of air assaults you, hot and thick, heavy with the perfume of unfamiliar blossoms, and something else, something acrid and sweet, a faint burning smell that seems to cling to the edges of this new world. You are disoriented, your limbs still thrumming with the phantom sway of the ocean. Your eyes, accustomed to the deep gloom, squint against the blinding glare of the sun, a sun far more intense than any you have ever known. Around you, the murmur of a foreign tongue, French, harsh and quick, punctuated by shouts that feel like whips cracking in the air. You are pushed forward, jostled, your body aching from the long confinement, every muscle stiff, every bone weary. The ground beneath your bare feet is no longer the slick, cold deck of the ship, but rough, uneven earth, bits of stone, dry leaves, and an unfamiliar gritty dust. You stumble, your legs weak, but a hand, rough and insistent, pushes you onward. You are one of many, a nameless face in a sea of bewildered and terrified eyes, all of you sharing the same harrowing journey, the same profound loss. The sounds here are different too, not the familiar rhythms of your village, the lowing of cattle, the distant song of women grinding grain, the laughter of children playing in the dust. Here there is a constant hum of insects, shrill and ceaseless, the rustling of leaves in a breeze that offers little relief from the heat, and the rhythmic dull thud of something heavy in the distance, a sound you do not yet understand, but which already feels ominous. You are herded into a large, open space, a kind of market, but unlike any market you have ever seen. There are no vibrant cloth, no fragrant spices, no chatter of familiar voices bartering and trading. Here the goods are people. You see others like yourself, standing listlessly, their faces etched with the same exhaustion and fear you feel. Some are older, their bodies already bearing the marks of hardship. Some are younger, children, clinging to their mothers' tattered garments, their eyes wide and uncomprehending. The air is thick with the stares of white faces, men in fine clothes, their skin pale beneath wide-brimmed hats, their eyes scanning you with a detached, calculating gaze. They speak in their strange tongue, pointing, gesturing, their words like blunt instruments. You feel exposed, reduced to something less than human, a commodity to be assessed, to be bought. A man approaches you, his features harsh, his eyes cold and appraising. He runs his hand roughly over your arm, pinches your flesh, examines your teeth, as if you were a horse or an ox. You flinch internally, every fiber of your being recoiling from this invasion, this profound indignity. But you remain still, your breath shallow, knowing that any sign of defiance, any perceived weakness, could bring swift and terrible consequences. You have seen enough in these few hours, in the silent warnings from those who have been here longer, to understand that. You are sold. The transaction is quick, a few mumbled words, the clinking of coins. And suddenly you belong to someone else. The concept is alien, horrifying. In your homeland you belong to your family, to your community, to the land you cultivated. Here, you are property. You are led away from the market, your new owner, A stout man with a florid face and a perpetually scowling expression walks ahead, barking orders at the overseer beside him. You follow, your feet dragging, the dust kicking up around your ankles. The path is narrow, winding through what seems like an endless expanse of tall green stalks, rustling in the hot breeze. Sugarcane, you have heard of it, in whispers on the ship, a crop that fuels the wealth of this new world and consumes the lives of those forced to cultivate it. As you walk, the landscape opens up. You see other figures in the distance, bent over, moving slowly through the fields, their backs to the relentless sun. They are also black, their clothes simple and coarse, their movements slow and methodical. This is your future. This is what awaits you. You arrive at a collection of crude huts, built of wattle and daub, with thatched roofs. This is the habitation, the living quarters for the enslaved. It is a stark contrast to the grand, imposing white house you glimpsed earlier, surrounded by manicured gardens, a stark symbol of the divide that governs this land. Your new home is a small single room, dark and sparsely furnished, with a simple cot and a few rough shelves. You are shown to it by an older woman, her face lined with a lifetime of hardship, her eyes holding a deep, quiet sadness. She speaks to you in a broken blend of French and a language you slowly begin to recognize as Creole, a language born of necessity and survival, a blend of African tongues and the colonizer's words. She tells you your name, or rather, the name you will now be called. It is not your own. Your true name, the one given to you by your mother, feels like a precious secret, something you must hold close within your heart, lest it be stolen too. The older woman, whose name you learn is Maman Claudine, points to a small clay pot for water and a crude wooden bowl. She explains, through gestures and simple words, the routine. Wake before dawn, work until dusk, eat what is given, obey, disobey, and suffer. Her voice is soft, but the warning in her eyes is clear. Night falls quickly in this tropical land. The vibrant colors of the day give way to a deep, inky blackness, studded with stars that seem impossibly bright. The air cools slightly, but remains humid. From the surrounding huts, you hear faint murmurs, the low drone of voices, the cry of an infant, the melancholic strain of a distant drum. These are the sounds of your new community, a community forged in shared suffering. You lie on your cot, the straw mattress rustling beneath you. Sleep does not come easily. Your mind races, replaying the horrors of the journey, the indignity of the market, the chilling realization of your new reality. You long for the familiar faces of your family, the comforting sounds of your village, the earth under your feet that was truly yours. A profound sense of loneliness washes over you, a loneliness so deep it feels like a physical ache. But amidst the despair, a flicker of something else stirs within you. A stubborn, tiny ember of resilience. You are still here. You have survived the journey. You must survive this. The first light of dawn is not a gentle awakening here. It is heralded by the piercing crack of a whip, followed by the guttural shouts of the commandeur, the enslaved driver appointed by the master. You leap from your cot, your heart pounding, the sound a shock to your system. Maman Claudine is already stirring in the neighboring hut, a shadow in the dim light. You join the others, a silent procession moving towards the fields. The air is still cool, but the promise of the day's heat already hangs heavy. The ground is damp with dew, cool beneath your bare feet. You notice the others carry their tools, hoes with heavy blades, long machetes. You are handed a hoe, its wooden handle smooth from countless hands, its metal blade glinting faintly. It feels heavy in your grasp, a tool of labor, but also, you realize, a symbol of your unending toil. The sun begins its relentless ascent, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. But there is no time to admire its beauty. The commandeur is already walking amongst the rows of sugar cane, his eyes sharp, his whip coiled menacingly at his side. You are shown how to cut the cane. It is a brutal, repetitive task. The stalks are thick, fibrous, and resistant. You must swing the hoe with force, aiming for the base of the stalk, severing it cleanly. Then you must strip the leaves, pull the heavy stalks into bundles, and carry them to the collection point. The cane blades are sharp, and you quickly learn to be careful, for a careless swing can result in a painful cut. Hours pass, marked only by the shifting position of the sun. Your muscles ache in places you didn't know existed. The sun beats down on your back, hot and unforgiving. Sweat stings your eyes, mixes with the dust on your skin. Your throat is dry, your lips cracked. The thirst is a constant gnawing presence. You try to keep pace with the others, the experienced hands who move with a practiced efficiency. Their movements fluid despite the grueling nature of the work. You watch them, trying to mimic their technique, hoping to avoid the attention of the commandeur. His voice is a constant presence, a low rumble of threats and insults, occasionally punctuated by the sharp crack of his whip on the air, or more terrifyingly, on the flesh of someone who falters. Midday brings a brief respite. A small ration of food is distributed, usually a handful of cornmeal, sometimes a piece of dried fish or a few plantains. It is barely enough to quell the hunger pangs, but it is something. You eat quickly, mindlessly, your body craving nourishment. There is no conversation, only the sounds of chewing and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. This is not a meal shared with family, with laughter and stories. It is sustenance, purely for survival. After the brief break, the work resumes. The afternoon sun is even more brutal than the morning. The air shimmers above the fields, distorting the view. Your mind begins to drift, your thoughts a hazy jumble of exhaustion and longing. You try to remember the faces of your loved ones, their voices, the warmth of their touch. But the memories feel distant, fragile, threatening to slip away. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the fields, the commandeur finally signals the end of the day's labor. Your body screams in protest, every fiber aching, every joint stiff. You walk back to the habitation in a daze, your mind numb with fatigue. The evening is brief. You use a small amount of precious water to wash the day's grime from your skin. The cool water, a small luxury. Maman Claudine shows you how to prepare your cornmeal, mixing it with water to form a thick paste. It is bland, unappetizing, but it fills the emptiness in your stomach. Before sleep, a few gather around a small, flickering fire. There is no loud talk, no boisterous laughter. Instead, hushed conversations, quiet murmurs, a shared sigh. Someone begins to hum a low, mournful tune, a melody that speaks of distant lands, of sorrow, but also of an enduring spirit. You listen, the sound a balm to your weary soul. It is a sound that connects you to something deeper, something that transcends the brutal reality of your day. It is a reminder that even in this place of suffering, there is still humanity, still a shared breath. You lie down on your cot once more, the rustling straw now feeling like a familiar comfort. Your body is heavy, your eyelids droop. This time, sleep comes more easily, the exhaustion claiming you completely. You fall into a deep, dreamless slumber, a temporary escape from the waking nightmare. Days bleed into weeks, and weeks into months. The routine solidifies into an unbreakable pattern. Wake before dawn, toil in the fields, return at dusk, eat, sleep, repeat. Your body adapts, slowly, begrudgingly. Your muscles harden. Your skin thickens under the constant sun. The initial shock gives way to a grim endurance. You learn the subtle rhythms of the sugarcane, how it grows, how to cut it efficiently, how to avoid the stinging sap. You learn to read the subtle shifts in the commandeur's mood, when to work harder, when to try and disappear into the anonymity of the rows. You learn the importance of silence, of keeping your thoughts to yourself. The small community in the habitation becomes your world. You learn the names of those around you, the quiet whispers of their stories. There is Jean, a young man from a neighboring hut, his eyes perpetually watchful, his movements quick and agile. There is old Père Antoine, his back bent from years of labor, but his spirit still flickering with a quiet dignity. And Maman Claudine, she becomes a silent guardian, offering a gentle touch, a shared glance of understanding, a small portion of her meager food when yours runs short. You witness the brutality, the lashings for those who fall behind, for those who speak out, for those who simply displease the master or the overseer. The cries echo through the fields, chilling your blood, reinforcing the constant terror that underlies every moment of your existence. You learn to avert your gaze, to harden your heart against the suffering of others, because to feel too deeply would be to break, and breaking is not an option. But even amidst the hardship, there are small moments, fleeting glimpses of humanity, of resistance. You learn the subtle ways people communicate, through coded songs, through shared glances, through the way they carry themselves. You learn the importance of a shared smile, a quiet nod, a gesture of solidarity. These small acts of defiance, of connection, are like tiny sparks in the oppressive darkness. You hear stories, whispered in the deep of night, of escapes, of those who vanished into the vast, wild interior of the island. The Maroons, they are legends, whispered hopes, a powerful antidote to the despair. Some speak of hidden communities in the mountains, free from the chains of slavery, where people live by their own laws, where the drums beat for joy, not for summoning to labor. The thought of such a place is a powerful current beneath the surface of your consciousness. You learn about the diseases that plague the habitation, fevers, dysentery, the constant threat of infection from the cuts and scrapes that are an inevitable part of the work. Many fall ill, and few recover. The habitation is a place of constant mourning, of quiet funerals held under the cover of darkness, as another soul is lost to the cane fields or the unforgiving conditions. You learn to recognize the signs of illness in others, to offer what small comfort you can. A cool hand on a fevered brow, a shared sip of water. The language of this new land, Creole, begins to sink into your bones. You understand more of the French spoken by the masters, enough to know when you are being cursed, when orders are given. But it is the Creole that becomes your language of survival, of community. It is the language in which you share your pain, your hopes, your unspoken truths. You notice the hierarchy even among the enslaved. The commandeur, given a position of power, but still enslaved himself, walking a dangerous tightrope between obedience to the master and the silent condemnation of his own people. The house slaves, those who work inside the master's great house, sometimes seen as having a slightly better lot, but also living under the constant watchful eyes of the white family, their freedom even more curtailed. You are a field hand, the lowest rung, working in the sun, your body a tool for the production of wealth. One evening, after a particularly brutal day, Père Antoine gathers a few of you. His voice is a low rumble, almost a whisper, but filled with an ancient power. He speaks of the spirits and of the ancestors, of the old ways. He lights a small, crude lamp and begins to draw symbols in the dirt with a stick. These are not the gods of the white men, the ones preached by the missionaries who occasionally visit with their stern faces and promises of salvation. These are the Elways, the spirits of your homeland, brought across the ocean, transformed, but still powerful. He speaks of Papa Legba, who opens the gates, of Ogun, the spirit of iron and war, of Ezili Dantor, the fierce protector. You listen, captivated. It is a connection to something deeper, something that reminds you of who you are, of where you come from before this place. It is a moment of profound spiritual defiance. In this shared ritual, you find a sense of belonging, a reaffirmation of your identity that the master tries so desperately to strip away. This is Vodou, not the distorted, fearful caricature the white men propagate, but a living, breathing faith, a source of strength and resilience. You learn the subtle art of resistance. It is not always open rebellion, though whispers of such things occasionally ripple through the habitation. More often, it is subtle sabotage, a hoe blade that mysteriously breaks, a cane stalk deliberately cut in such a way that it slows down the processing, a sickness feigned just long enough to escape a day of the worst labor. These are small acts, but they are acts of agency, tiny assertions of control in a world where you have none. The children in the habitation are a stark reminder of the future. You see them playing in the dirt, their laughter sometimes ringing out, quickly stifled by the harsh realities around them. You see them learning to carry water, to perform small tasks, their childhood stolen before they truly begin. You wonder what kind of future awaits them, if they will ever know a life free from the cane fields. You think of your own childhood, of running through familiar fields, of splashing in cool rivers, of listening to stories by firelight, of the secure knowledge that you belonged, that life seems a lifetime away, a dream from which you have cruelly awakened. Yet the memory persists, a tiny ember refusing to be extinguished. The nights are often filled with the sounds of the plantation, the distant barking of dogs, the calls of nightbirds, and sometimes the low, mournful singing of a fellow enslaved person, a song of sorrow, of longing, of resilience. These songs are not meant for the master's ears, they are for you, for your community, a shared language of the soul. You begin to recognize the cycles of the cane, the planting, the growth, the harvest. The harvest is the most brutal time. The work is even more intense, the hours longer, the commandeurs even more vigilant. The air fills with the smell of cut cane, sweet and cloying, a smell that will forever be imprinted in your memory as the scent of suffering. The harvested cane is taken to the sugar mill, a towering, intimidating structure you have only seen from a distance. You hear the rhythmic grinding of the rollers, the constant hiss of steam, the shouts of the mill workers. It is a place of immense danger, where fingers and limbs can be crushed in the machinery, where the boiling sugar cane juice can scald the flesh. You are grateful for now that your labor is in the fields, but you know that others are not so fortunate. Life on this plantation is a constant battle for survival. Every day is a test of endurance, of spirit, but in the quiet moments, in the shared glances, in the whispered stories, in the ancient rhythms of the drums, you find a glimmer of hope, a hope that one day, somehow, this suffering will end, a hope that you, or your children, will know what it means to be truly free. You learn to read the signs in the sky, the gathering clouds that promise a brief, violent downpour, a temporary reprieve from the sun's relentless assault. You learn to appreciate the coolness of the earth beneath your feet after a rain shower, the feel of the cleansing water on your parched skin. These small mercies are precious, cherished. The master, Monsieur Dubois, is a distant, imposing figure. You rarely see him up close, but his presence is everywhere. His demands dictate your life, his whims determine your fate. You hear stories of his extravagance, his lavish parties, his trips to Port-au-Prince, a city you can only imagine. His wealth is built on your sweat, your blood, your broken body. This realization burns within you, a quiet, persistent fire. You see the injustices everywhere, the overseers, mostly poor white men or mulattoes, who are cruel because their own precarious positions depend on their ability to exert control over you. The laws, dictated by France, that grant you no rights, that categorize you as chattel, property. This is a system designed to dehumanize, to break, to exploit. But the human spirit, it is a stubborn thing. It bends, but it does not always break. You watch the older men and women, their bodies scarred, their faces etched with pain. Yet there is a resilience in their eyes, a quiet strength that inspires you. They have endured, and so, you tell yourself, must you. The evenings, after the meal, are the closest you come to peace. Some tell stories from the old country, tales of trickster gods and brave warriors. stories that bring a flicker of light to the darkness. Others sing, their voices blending in a haunting chorus that floats out into the night. These are the moments when your spirit feels a little less burdened, when you are reminded of your shared heritage, of the enduring power of your culture. You hear about the different types of sugar produced, the raw sugar that is shipped to France, the refined sugar that graces the tables of the wealthy. You understand, in a visceral way, that your entire existence is dedicated to this single sweet product, a product that brings pleasure to others, but only pain to you. The fear is a constant companion. Fear of the whip, fear of starvation, fear of being sold away from the few people you have come to know, fear of the unknown. But alongside this fear, there is also a growing anger, a slow, simmering resentment that churns deep within you. It is an anger that you dare not show, but it is there, a powerful, dangerous force. You see the women on the plantation, their burdens even heavier than the men's. They work in the fields, they cook for their families, they care for the children. They are vulnerable to the desires of the masters and overseers, their bodies not their own. You witness their silent suffering, their quiet strength. It adds another layer to the weight of injustice you carry. The children, even in their innocence, learn quickly. They watch, they listen. You see the light in their eyes dim a little each day as they grasp the reality of their world. But you also see their fleeting moments of joy, a shared game, a whispered secret, a small act of defiance that brings a mischievous sparkle to their eyes. They are the future, and in them you see a fragile hope for change. The stars above the habitation are your only constant. Each night you look up at them, vast and indifferent, yet somehow comforting in their unchanging presence. You imagine your ancestors looking down from those same stars, watching over you, perhaps sending strength. It is a small comfort, but in this desolate world, every comfort is a treasure. The air remains thick with the scent of sugar, of sweat, of the earth. It is the smell of colonial Haiti, a place of stark beauty and profound brutality. You are here, you are enduring, and you are slowly, painfully learning to survive. The seasons here are subtle, not the distinct changes you knew in your homeland. Instead, there are periods of heavier rain, the ground turning to thick, clinging mud, making the already arduous work even more difficult. And then there are longer, hotter dry spells when the earth cracks under the sun's gaze and the air is thick with dust. Each cycle brings its own set of challenges, its own particular brand of suffering. You begin to recognize the subtle signs of resistance within the enslaved community, things that would be invisible to the white overseers, a song sung just a little too loudly, with words that, to the uninitiated ear, sound harmless, but carry double meanings, secret messages of hope or defiance. A slowdown of work that seems accidental, a hoe breaking just when the overseer turns his back. Small acts of sabotage, designed not to destroy, but to frustrate, to assert a tiny measure of control over your own labor. You learn about the punishments, not just the lash, which is common and frequent, but other, more insidious forms of cruelty. The iron collar, heavy and demeaning, worn around the neck to prevent escape or to mark a runaway. The stocks, where a person is left exposed to the sun and insects, the deprivation of food and water, a slow, agonizing torment. These are not just deterrents. They are tools of psychological warfare, designed to break the spirit. You witness the master's visits to the fields. He comes on horseback, his white clothes pristine, his face impassive as he surveys his human property. His presence sends a ripple of tension through the fields. Work intensifies, backs straighten, voices fall silent. You learn to avoid his gaze, to become invisible, a shadow in the vast expanse of Cain. His power is absolute here, and you are merely a cog in his brutal machine. The small medical attention provided is almost worse than none. A master might grudgingly call for a doctor, often a white man with little true medical knowledge, who applies harsh remedies or performs crude amputations. For common ailments, you rely on the wisdom of Maman Claudine, who gathers herbs from the edges of the fields, brewing teas and poultices in secret, relying on ancestral knowledge passed down through generations. Her hands are gentle, her touch a comfort, a quiet act of healing in a world bent on harm. You learn that escape is not just a dream, but a perilous journey. The mountains, known as the Morns, are vast and treacherous. They are home to wild animals, dense forests, and deep ravines. But they are also home to the Maroons, the runaway enslaved people who have forged new lives in freedom. Stories of their raids, their defiance, their hidden communities, fuel the whispers of hope among you. Some try to escape, and some succeed. But many are caught, hunted down by the dreaded chasseurs, the slave catchers with their dogs, and brought back for brutal public punishments designed to instill fear in others. The constant hum of insects is a pervasive sound of the island. Mosquitoes, their bites itchy and irritating, sometimes carrying fever. Flies, drawn to the sweat and the scent of decay. You learn to endure them, to swat without breaking rhythm, to sleep despite their incessant buzzing. You also learn about the plantation's animals, the work animals, the oxen that pull carts of cane, the horses that carry the master, but also the small creatures of the earth, the lizards that dart through the dry grass, the birds that sing their unfamiliar songs. Sometimes you see a snake, and a primal fear grips you, a reminder of the wildness that still exists beyond the neatly ordered rows of cane. Your diet is monotonous and meager: cornmeal, plantains, sometimes a few sweet potatoes. Meat is a rarity, a special occasion if an animal is butchered, and then only the least desirable cuts. Hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache in your stomach that never truly goes away. You learn to savor every mouthful, to eat slowly, to extract every last bit of nourishment. The nights are cooler but not truly cool. The air remains heavy with humidity. You often lie awake, listening to the sounds of the habitation, the quiet breathing of your hutmates, the occasional cough, the soft rustle of straw as someone shifts in their sleep, sometimes a low murmur of a prayer, or a quiet sob that quickly stifles itself. These sounds weave together, a tapestry of shared suffering and quiet resilience. You witness the toll that this life takes on bodies. The young age quickly, their faces lined prematurely, their bodies bent and gnarled. Old age, for the enslaved, is a rare blessing, and often a painful one. To survive means to endure unimaginable hardship, to push your body beyond its limits day after day, year after year. The system of labor is relentless. During the harvest, the work is particularly intense. The gangs, groups of enslaved people, are organized by strength and skill. You are in the Grande Bande, the main gang, responsible for the heaviest, most physically demanding work. There are also the Petite Bande, the smaller, weaker individuals, often children or the elderly who perform lighter tasks. And the Atelier, the skilled workers, if any, like carpenters or blacksmiths, who are few and prized. You are interchangeable, a nameless body in the vast sea of laborers. You learn the subtle power dynamics between the different groups of enslaved people. The Creoles, those born on the island, often have a better understanding of the language and the customs of the plantation. They might hold positions of slight privilege, like drivers or domestic servants. Then there are the new arrivals, like you, known as bosales, raw, unseasoned, and often viewed with a mixture of pity and contempt by those who have already endured the breaking process. The overseers are often just as brutal as the masters. They are often white men of lower social standing, or sometimes mixed-race individuals, mulattoes, who are eager to prove their loyalty to the planter class. Their cruelty is a way to assert their own power, to feel superior in a system that still places them beneath the true masters. You learn to dread their presence, their harsh voices, the glint of their whips. You watch the children of the master, growing up in their grand house, surrounded by luxury and privilege. They are pale, delicate creatures, seemingly oblivious to the suffering that fuels their existence. Sometimes a child, full of innocent curiosity, might wander near the habitation, their eyes wide as they observe your lives. You feel a strange mix of resentment and a peculiar sort of pity for them, for they too are products of this broken system. The smell of the sugar mill, when it is in operation, is overpowering. A mix of sweet cane juice and the metallic tang of machinery. You sometimes see the carts laden with freshly cut cane heading towards it, a dark, sticky liquid dripping from the bundles. It is the lifeblood of the plantation, and it demands a constant sacrifice. You learn to be resourceful, to mend your own tattered clothes with scraps of cloth found or traded, to fashion simple tools from discarded bits of wood or metal, to make the most of every meager ration. Survival demands ingenuity. You learn to observe, to remember, to adapt. The practice of Vodou continues in secret. At night, after the overseers have retired, faint drumbeats sometimes carry on the breeze from distant habitations. In your own small community, Père Antoine leads quiet ceremonies, the invocations whispered, the movements subtle. You participate, joining in the call and response, feeling the ancient rhythms stir within your very soul. It is a lifeline, a connection to a spiritual power that transcends the material world of your oppressors. It is a way to find meaning in suffering, to seek solace, and to find strength for the battles ahead. Sometimes, a traveling peddler or merchant will pass through the plantation, selling trinkets or small necessities. They are usually white or mixed race. You see them exchange goods with the overseers or the master. You are invisible to them, simply part of the background scenery. They represent the outside world, a world that exists beyond the boundaries of your forced existence, a world you can only imagine. You hear about the capital city, Port-au-Prince, with its grand houses, its bustling port, its refined society. It seems like another world entirely, far removed from the dirt and labor of the plantation. It is a place of white power and privilege, where the fruits of your labor are enjoyed without a second thought. The thought of it sparks a bitter taste in your mouth. You learn the different plants in the surrounding landscape, the sturdy palms that sway in the breeze, the vibrant hibiscus flowers that bloom despite the harsh conditions, the thorny bushes that line the paths. You learn which ones offer shade, which ones bear edible fruit, and which ones hide danger. This knowledge becomes part of your survival toolkit. The relationships formed within the enslaved community are profound and essential. The shared hardship creates bonds stronger than blood. You look out for each other. A small gesture of kindness, a shared word of comfort, a moment of silent solidarity. These are priceless treasures in a world that seeks to isolate and dehumanize. You witness the master's attempts to control every aspect of your life. He dictates who you can marry, or if you can marry at all. He separates families, selling spouses or children to different plantations, tearing apart the fragile bonds that have been formed. This is one of the most painful aspects of your existence, the constant threat of losing the few people you have come to love. The sound of the bell, signaling the start or end of work, or calling you to meals, is a constant, grating presence. It is the sound of your unfreedom, the constant reminder that your time is not your own. You respond to it automatically, a conditioned reflex. Your body moving before your mind has even fully registered the sound. You experience the full force of the tropical storms. The sky darkens with incredible speed. The winds howl through the cane fields, flattening the stalks. The rain comes down in sheets, transforming the paths into rushing streams. You huddle in your hut, the flimsy walls shaking, the thatched roof barely holding against the deluge. It is a reminder of the raw power of nature, a power that even the masters cannot fully control. Sometimes, after a particularly heavy storm, the fields are a chaotic mess. The cane is tangled and broken, the ground waterlogged. The work of clearing and repairing is even more exhausting than usual, but there is also a strange sense of renewal in the air after the storm passes. The world washed clean, the air fresh and cool for a brief time. You observe the mulatto population of the island, These are the mixed-race individuals, often the offspring of white masters and enslaved women. Some are free, some are enslaved. They occupy a complex and often precarious position in Saint-Domingue society, caught between the white colonizers and the enslaved black population. They often aspire to white status, yet are constantly reminded of their black ancestry. Their lives are a testament to the convoluted and cruel social structure of the colony. The fear of being punished for something you didn't do is always present. The master's word is law. The overseer's accusation is proof. There is no justice for you, no appeal, no defense. You learn to be careful, to be invisible, to avoid any situation that might draw unwanted attention. Yet, despite the omnipresent fear, there are sparks of joy. A shared laugh with a friend during a brief moment of rest. A child's innocent smile. The taste of a perfectly ripe fruit found growing wild. These moments are fleeting, but they are precious. Glimpses of the enduring human spirit. You hear the faint, muffled sounds of festivities from the master's house. Music, laughter, the clinking of glasses. These sounds are a stark contrast to the quiet suffering of the habitation. They highlight the vast chasm between your world and theirs, a chasm built on the labor of your hands. The sugar, it is the reason for everything. The wealth of France, the fortunes of the planters, the entire economic engine of this colony. It all flows from the sweet, crystalline product that you help to cultivate. You are a living instrument in its creation, a silent, suffering partner in a vast global enterprise of exploitation. The sheer scale of the cane fields is overwhelming, row after row, stretching as far as the eye can see. Each stalk represents untold hours of labor, of sweat, of pain. The vastness of it makes your own individual suffering feel small, yet at the same time, it is multiplied by the thousands of others toiling beside you. You learn the different techniques of planting, of weeding, of harvesting. Every movement is economized, every swing of the hoe precise. Your body becomes a machine, operating on instinct and learned patterns. But within that machine, your spirit still flickers, stubbornly refusing to be extinguished. The sound of the conch shell, blown by the commandeur, is another sound of the plantation. It is a deep, mournful sound that carries across the fields, signaling the start of the day or the end, or a call for something specific. It is a sound that drills into your bones, a constant reminder of your lack of freedom. The food, when it is cooked, is often prepared communally, in large iron pots over open fires. The simple smells of boiling cornmeal or simmering vegetables are, at times, the only comfort. You learn to share what little you have. A silent understanding that survival depends on collective effort. You are acutely aware of the passage of time, not by days of the week, but by the cycles of the sun and the moon, by the changing demands of the cane. The relentless rhythm of the plantation dictates your existence. There is no leisure, no personal time. Every waking moment is dedicated to labor or the preparation for it. The very air of Saint-Domingue, humid and heavy, seems to press down on you. It is a constant physical sensation, adding to the burden you carry. Even the nights offer little true relief from the oppressive heat. You often dream of your homeland. Vivid, heartbreaking dreams of familiar faces, sounds and smells. You wake with a start. The stark reality of your hut, a cruel contrast to the warmth of your dreams. These dreams are a torture, yet also a comfort, a reminder of a life that once was, and a hope that perhaps, one day, something resembling it might exist again. The overseer's dogs, large, intimidating mastiffs or bloodhounds, are a constant threat. They are trained to track, to intimidate, to hunt down those who try to flee. Their barking sends shivers down your spine, a chilling sound that reminds you of the ever-present danger of escape attempts. You learn that even small acts of kindness from one enslaved person to another are acts of profound resistance. A shared sip of water, a helping hand when someone falters, a quiet word of encouragement. These are the threads that weave together the fabric of your community, making it stronger than the chains that bind it. The social order of Saint-Domingue is a cruel, rigid pyramid, and you are at its very base. At the top are the Grands Blancs, the wealthy white planters and officials, who live lives of unimaginable luxury and power. Below them are the Petits Blancs, the poor whites, overseers, artisans, small shopkeepers, who cling fiercely to their white skin as their only source of status. Then come the gens de couleur libre, the free people of color, a diverse group of mulattoes and some black individuals who have managed to buy their freedom. They own property, sometimes even enslaved people themselves, but are still subject to discriminatory laws and social prejudice. And at the bottom, the vast, overwhelming majority, are the enslaved Africans and their descendants, the source of all the colony's wealth, yet denied every shred of humanity. You are among them, a silent, suffering multitude. You witness the casual cruelty of this system. A white child, barely old enough to walk, striking an enslaved domestic with impunity. An overseer lashing an old man for a perceived slowness. The constant degradation, the insults, the dehumanizing language. It chips away at your spirit, but also hardens it, forging a quiet resolve. The seasons bring diseases with them. The wet season brings fevers, malaria. The oppressive humidity encourages skin infections. The dry season brings dust-borne illnesses, respiratory problems. The children are particularly vulnerable, their small bodies succumbing quickly to ailments that would be easily treatable in a different world. You watch mothers grieve, their sorrow a heavy shroud over the habitation. You learn the different qualities of cane. Some stalks are sweeter, juicier, yielding more sugar. Some are tougher, more fibrous, requiring greater effort to cut. The commandeur knows every nuance, and he pushes you to extract the maximum yield from every plant, every field, every ounce of your strength. The plantation is a small universe, self-contained and brutally efficient. Beyond the cane fields, there are often coffee plantations, or indigo fields, or cotton. Each crop demands its own particular kind of labor, its own cycle of suffering. But sugar is king in Saint-Domingue, and its reign is absolute. You learn to recognize the subtle hierarchies within the Grand Band. The strongest, the most enduring, they lead the lines, setting the pace. The less able follow, struggling to keep up. There is a silent understanding, a recognition of individual strengths and weaknesses, but also a collective responsibility to support each other. If one person falls too far behind, the whole gang might suffer the overseer's wrath. The master's house, the grand case, looms in the distance, a constant, imposing reminder of your servitude. It is a place of comfort and luxury for them, of fear and resentment for you. You never enter it, except perhaps as a new arrival to be inspected, or if you are unlucky enough to be assigned there as punishment or temporary labor. Its very existence is a testament to your forced labor. The meager clothing you wear provides little protection from the elements, coarse linen, thin and easily torn, offering scant barrier against the sun's scorching rays or the chill of the occasional cold night. Shoes are a luxury you do not possess. Your feet become calloused, hardened, but still vulnerable to thorns and sharp stones. You participate in the communal cooking. The small portions of saltfish or a bit of pork fat are used to flavor the bland cornmeal and plantains. These shared meals, however humble, are a vital part of your communal life. It is here that stories are exchanged, that grievances are aired in hushed tones, that solidarity is quietly reinforced. The language barriers slowly erode. You find yourself understanding more and more of the Creole spoken around you, its rhythms becoming familiar, its expressions conveying layers of meaning that official French never could. It becomes a language of intimacy, of shared experience, a bond that transcends tribal differences from the African continent. You learn the value of small rebellions, a whispered curse under your breath when the overseer passes, a moment of deliberate slowness when his back is turned, a tool accidentally broken. These are not acts of grand uprising, but microaggressions, tiny assertions of dignity in the face of overwhelming oppression. They are crucial for maintaining a sense of self. The sound of the river, if there is one nearby, offers a fleeting solace. Its cool waters, the gentle rustle of the reeds along its banks. Sometimes, if the commandeur is lenient, you might be allowed a brief moment to drink directly from it. The cool liquid, a blessing on your parched throat. You learn about the Maroon communities not just as distant legends, but as real places. Sometimes, a new arrival will whisper a rumor, a sighting, a story of a successful escape. These whispers are dangerous. If overheard, they can lead to severe punishment, but they are also vital, keeping the flame of hope alive. You become intimately familiar with your own body, its limits, its breaking points. You learn to push through pain, to ignore the burning in your muscles, the dryness in your throat. Your body is a vessel for labor, but it is also the vessel of your spirit. And that spirit, however battered, stubbornly refuses to yield. The distinct smell of the sugar refinery is a constant presence on the wind, sweet and slightly burnt, a heavy cloying aroma that seems to cling to everything. It is the scent of the wealth you create, a scent that becomes inextricably linked with your suffering. You witness the arbitrary nature of punishment. A single mistake, a perceived act of defiance, can lead to horrific brutality. The master's whim can determine your fate. There is no logic, no reason beyond the assertion of absolute power. This unpredictability adds another layer of terror to your daily existence. You come to understand the rhythms of the white world around you, the sound of the church bell on Sundays, signaling a day of rest and worship for them, while your labor continues, perhaps at a slightly slower pace, or you are given meager rations to sustain you with little true rest. The sound of their carriages rolling down the dusty roads, carrying them to their social gatherings, oblivious to the suffering they pass. The lack of personal space is a constant challenge. You live in close quarters, with little privacy. Shared huts, shared meager possessions. But this forced proximity also fosters a sense of community, of mutual reliance. You learn to navigate this closeness, to find moments of quiet solitude within the crowded space. You observe the white children of the plantation growing older. They learn to ride horses, to give orders, to wield authority over the enslaved. Their innocence, if it ever truly existed, fades into a replication of their parents' cruelty. You see the future of the colonial system in their developing attitudes. The stars at night, they are a window to another world. You search for familiar constellations, the ones you knew from your homeland. You talk to them in your mind, sending silent prayers, unspoken longings across the vast distance. They are a connection to your past and a silent witness to your present. The concept of time itself becomes distorted. Days are measured by the sun's arc and the labor it allows. Years blur into a relentless cycle of planting, growing, and harvesting. The past seems distant, the future uncertain. Only the present moment with its demands and its pains is real. You learn to read faces, the nuanced expressions of your fellow enslaved, a fleeting look of despair, a spark of anger, a quiet flicker of hope. You learn to communicate without words, through shared glances, through subtle gestures. It is a language of the oppressed, born of necessity. The sounds of the night are a tapestry of the wild and the human. The chirping of crickets, the croaking of frogs, the rustling of unseen creatures in the dense vegetation. And then, the human sounds, a baby's cry, a hushed conversation, the rhythmic pounding of a mortar and pestle as someone grinds grains for a special meal. These sounds are both comforting and disquieting. The fear of separation is a heavy burden. The knowledge that any day you or someone you love could be sold to a different plantation, severed from the only family you have left. This constant threat makes every bond precious, every shared moment a fragile gift. You hear about the free people of color in the towns, some living in comfortable circumstances, owning businesses, even reading and writing. They represent a different path, a possibility of a life beyond the cane fields, but you also know that their freedom is precarious, constantly challenged by the white population. and that such a path is closed to most who labor in the fields. The feeling of injustice is a dull, constant ache. It is not just the physical pain, but the profound moral outrage that burns within you. The knowledge that your suffering is for the benefit of others, that your humanity is denied, that your very existence is defined by your enslavers. It is a burden heavier than any cane stalk. You learn the subtle signals of the Maroons, a particular bird call that is not truly a bird, a pile of stones in a certain formation. These are dangerous secrets, but they are also lifelines, connecting you to the possibility of ultimate freedom. The climate itself is a formidable foe. The relentless sun drains your energy. The sudden, intense downpours can turn the fields into a muddy quagmire. The humidity saps your strength. You learn to move with the sun, to anticipate the rains, to adapt your labor to the natural forces around you. You become acutely aware of the economic value of your body. Every muscle, every sinew, every hour of your labor is calculated and converted into profit for the master. You are a living tool, a commodity, stripped of personhood. This objectification is deeply dehumanizing. The sounds of the master's household, sometimes carried on the wind, are a stark contrast to the quiet of the habitation. The tinkling of glass, the distant laughter of white women, the strains of European music. It is a sound of alien pleasure, a world of opulence built on your stolen labor. You learn to find moments of small personal victories, a task completed perfectly, despite your exhaustion. A hidden moment of rest snatched when no one is looking. A shared smile of understanding with a fellow enslaved person. These small acts of defiance and resilience are vital for your psychological survival. The cycle of punishment and forced labor is designed to break your will, but it also paradoxically strengthens it. The more they try to crush you, the more fiercely your spirit clings to its own essence, to its own identity. You become a creature of habit. The repetitive motions of cutting cane, carrying bundles, preparing meager meals, they become ingrained. Your body moves almost automatically, freeing your mind to wander, to dream, to resist in its own silent way. The presence of death is constant. Illness, accidents in the fields or at the mill, punishment. You learn to live with its shadow, to mourn quietly, to steel yourself against its inevitability. Yet each loss is a fresh wound, a reminder of the fragility of life under slavery. The stories of the homeland, of Africa, are precious treasures. Passed down from the elders, they keep alive a connection to a world before this one. Tales of kings and queens, of vibrant cultures, of ancient wisdom. They are a source of pride and identity, a secret defiance against the dehumanization of slavery. You often dream of freedom, not just an abstract concept, but a tangible feeling. The feeling of walking where you choose, of speaking your own name, of eating what you grow for yourself. These dreams are both a torment and a lifeline. The smell of the earth, moist after a rain, or dry and dusty in the sun, becomes deeply ingrained. It is the smell of your labor, of your life, of your existence on this land that is both your prison and, in a strange way, your only home now. The rhythms of the plantation are dictated by the sun and the moon and the unyielding demands of the sugar crop. The full moon sometimes brings a slight reprieve from the oppressive heat, illuminating the paths with a ghostly glow. But it also illuminates the master's constant vigilance, or sometimes the clandestine gatherings in the deepest shadows, where the spirit of resistance takes form. You observe the subtle ways that knowledge is transmitted amongst the enslaved, not through written words, which are denied to you, but through oral tradition, stories, songs, proverbs, and coded conversations, information about other plantations, about conditions in the towns, about new arrivals from Africa. This network of communication is vital for survival, for understanding the larger world beyond your plantation. The constant surveillance is a heavy psychological burden. The eyes of the commandeur, the overseer, the master, you are always being watched, always being judged. Every gesture, every expression, every moment of rest is scrutinized. This forces you to internalize your true feelings, to present a stoic, impassive face to your oppressors. The concept of family, as you knew it, has been shattered. Your blood family is far away, perhaps lost forever. Here, in the habitation, you form new families, bonds of choice and necessity. These are not legal unions in the eyes of the master, but they are profoundly real and deeply cherished. They are built on shared hardship, mutual support, and a fierce, protective love. You learn to be wary of new arrivals, not out of animosity, but out of caution. Some, still raw from the Middle Passage, may struggle to adapt, drawing unwanted attention. Others might inadvertently reveal information that could put the community at risk. It takes time for trust to build, for a new bossel to truly become part of the collective. The punishments are designed not just to inflict pain, but to humiliate and degrade. They strip away dignity, forcing the enslaved into positions of total vulnerability. The aim is to break the spirit, to instill absolute obedience through terror. You witness this, and it hardens your resolve never to show weakness, never to let them see you truly broken. The sound of the overseer's horn or the conch shell carries far across the fields. It is a harsh, demanding sound that pulls you from any moment of quiet thought, snapping you back to the brutal reality of labor. It is the sound of absolute control. You learn the plants that grow wild around the plantation that offer sustenance or medicinal properties. A certain root to ease a stomachache, a particular leaf to soothe a wound. This ancestral knowledge, often passed down from Africa, is a crucial form of independent self-care, a quiet act of defiance against a system that denies you proper medical aid. The constant physical pain becomes a part of your existence, a dull ache in your back from bending over the cane all day, the burning in your shoulders from carrying heavy bundles, the cuts and scrapes on your hands and feet. Your body is a testament to the brutal demands placed upon it. You learn to live with the pain, to push through it, because there is no other choice. You hear stories of different forms of resistance, not just marronage, but also poisoning. Whispered rumors of slow, undetectable substances slipped into the master's food. These stories, though terrifying, are also a source of grim satisfaction, a reminder that power can be wielded in many ways. The air is always thick with the scent of the earth. During the dry season, it is the smell of dust and parched soil. After a rain, it is the rich, fertile scent of damp earth and growing cane. It is a smell that becomes synonymous with your life of labor. You become skilled at rationing your meager food, making a small portion last, sharing a few precious morsels with someone weaker or sicker. It is a daily exercise in discipline and communal care, a demonstration of solidarity in a world designed to foster competition and despair. The sheer loneliness of your situation, even amidst others, is profound. The loss of your homeland, your family, your identity. The feeling of being adrift in a foreign land, speaking a foreign tongue, forced to live a life you never chose. This loneliness is a silent companion, sometimes overwhelming. You observe the constant flow of goods to and from the plantation. The carts laden with sugar heading towards the port. The arrival of supplies from France, tools, cloth, wine for the master. You are part of this global economic machine, yet you receive none of its benefits. The sounds of the night are distinct from the day. The rhythmic chirping of countless insects, the distant cries of nocturnal animals, and the quiet, almost imperceptible sounds of human activity within the habitation, a cough, a sigh, a whispered prayer. These are the sounds of a community enduring in the darkness. You learn that even gestures can be dangerous. A defiant look, a slow movement, a perceived disrespect. The system is designed to punish even the slightest deviation from absolute obedience. You learn to control your body, your expressions, to mask your true feelings. The fear of the slave patrols is ever present. Armed men on horseback, often accompanied by their fearsome dogs, constantly crisscrossing the island, searching for runaways, enforcing the brutal laws of the Code Noir. Their sudden appearance sends a ripple of dread through the fields. You become an expert at efficiency. Every movement is calculated to conserve energy, to avoid unnecessary effort. You develop a rhythm, a flow to your work that allows you to endure the long hours under the relentless sun. The master's social life is a distant spectacle, carriages arriving, music drifting from the grand case. These are reminders of a world of leisure and privilege that is built directly upon your suffering. It fuels a quiet resentment, a burning sense of injustice. The resilience of the human spirit, however, is constantly demonstrated around you. The ability of your fellow enslaved to laugh, to sing, to tell stories, even in the face of unimaginable hardship. These moments are brief, but they are powerful, reaffirming the enduring humanity that the system tries so hard to crush. You learn the signs of impending changes in the weather, the shift in the wind, the color of the clouds, the feel of the air. These are not just observations, they are vital pieces of information that help you anticipate the day's conditions and the demands they will place upon your body. The master's authority extends to every aspect of your life, even your relationships. He can forbid marriages, sell a child away from its parents, or force unions for the purpose of breeding more enslaved laborers. This control over personal lives is deeply dehumanizing, robbing individuals of agency and emotional connection. You internalize the concept of dignity as an inner state. It is not something that can be given or taken away by the master. It is something you hold within yourself, a secret wellspring of strength that allows you to endure without being truly broken. The communal spirit of the habitation is a lifeline. Shared burdens, shared stories, shared dreams. This sense of collective identity and mutual support is what enables you and your fellow enslaved to survive day after brutal day. You become acutely aware of the land itself, the soil beneath your feet, the plants that grow from it, the very topography of the plantation. It is a landscape of labor, but also a source of quiet wisdom, of secrets whispered by the wind through the cane. The concept of a day of rest is almost alien. Sundays may bring a slightly reduced workload or time for personal chores, but true leisure, true freedom from labor, is a luxury reserved for others. Your body and mind are perpetually in service to the plantation. You learn the specific names of the fields, the sections of the plantation. Each area has its own characteristics, its own history of labor and suffering. You traverse them daily, becoming intimately familiar with every rise and dip, every patch of stubborn weeds. The scent of roasting plantains, if someone manages to acquire them, is a rare treat. It signals a small moment of comfort, a fleeting taste of something warm and satisfying, far removed from the bland cornmeal. You learn to read the subtle signals from the animals around you. The behavior of the work oxen, the flight of birds, the scurry of lizards. These small observations offer a distraction, a brief connection to the natural world beyond the confines of your human suffering. The commandeur's voice is a constant grating presence, a harsh, authoritative bark that pierces the air, pushing you to work faster, harder. It is the sound of relentless pressure, of unending demand. You understand that the master's wealth is directly proportional to your suffering. The more sugar you produce, the more he profits. This knowledge fuels a quiet, simmering rage beneath the surface of your outward compliance. You participate in the clandestine religious practices, the Vodou ceremonies, held deep in the night or hidden away in the darkest corners of the plantation. These are not just rituals. They are acts of cultural preservation, a reclamation of spiritual power, a source of communal strength and defiance. The drumming, however faint, is a heartbeat connecting you to your ancestral past. The sound of children crying, especially at night, is a common and heartbreaking sound. It is a constant reminder of the vulnerability of the youngest among you, and the harsh realities they are born into. You become a master of concealment, hiding a small tool, a bit of extra food, a treasured trinket. These small acts of defiance are crucial for maintaining a sense of self and resisting the total control of the master. The fear of rebellion, for the white population, is a palpable presence. You see it in their vigilance, their harsh laws, their armed patrols. And in that fear you sense a glimmer of your own collective power. a dangerous potential that could one day turn the world upside down. You learn to recognize the individual sounds of the plantation, the creak of a distant cart, the chopping of wood, the sound of the mill gears grinding. These sounds become the soundtrack to your existence, marking the passage of time and the endless cycles of labor. The longing for freedom is a constant, deep ache in your soul. It is the core of your being, the light that guides you through the darkest days. It is not a question of if it will come, but when and how. The shared knowledge of herbal remedies and traditional healing practices passed down through generations is a form of cultural resistance. It asserts an autonomy over your own bodies and health, denying the white doctors their full authority. The weight of your chains, though unseen, is always there. The invisible chains of economic exploitation, of social dehumanization, of psychological control. They bind you as surely as any iron shackles. The very air you breathe in Saint-Domingue is heavy with history, with suffering, with the unfulfilled hopes of generations. You are a part of this unfolding story, a living witness to the profound injustices of the past. The Code Noir, the Black Code, is the law that governs your life, though you may never see it written down. Its rules are enforced with brutal clarity by the master and the overseer. It defines you not as a person, but as property, a meuble, a chattel, something to be bought, sold, leased, or inherited. It dictates that you must be baptized and instructed in Catholicism, a hollow gesture for many, as your true spiritual life thrives in secret. It permits brutal punishments and denies you any legal recourse. You understand that this is not justice, but a system designed to maintain power and profit. You become an expert in the language of the whip, not just its sound, but its varying tones. The sharp crack for a minor infraction, the heavy thudding blows for perceived insolence or defiance. You learn to interpret these sounds, to anticipate the pain, to brace yourself, or to quickly correct your movements to avoid drawing its attention. The heat, a constant oppressive presence, saps your strength. It rises from the baked earth, shimmers over the cane fields, and clings to your skin. You learn to seek out the smallest patch of shade during your brief rest periods, to cup your hands for a few drops of water, to move slowly and deliberately to conserve energy. You learn the unspoken rules of the plantation hierarchy. The domestic enslaved, those who work in the grand case, sometimes have slightly better food or clothing, but they live under the constant watchful eyes of the master's family. They hear secrets, see things that you in the fields never would, and they too suffer their own unique forms of oppression. The scarcity of resources forces creativity. You learn to make tools from scraps, to weave baskets from discarded fibers, to fashion implements from whatever you can find. This ingenuity is a testament to the human capacity for survival, for making something out of nothing. The distinct smell of molasses, thick and sweet, is often carried on the wind from the sugar mill. It's the byproduct of sugar production, used for rum or for feeding livestock. It's a smell that represents the vast profits flowing from the plantation, none of which ever reach you. You witness the psychological games played by the masters and overseers. They foster distrust among the enslaved, rewarding informants, punishing solidarity. They try to strip away your sense of community, to isolate you, believing that a divided people cannot rebel. But you also see how these tactics often fail, how the bonds of shared suffering are stronger than any manipulation. The whispers of resistance, of marronage, are like a lifeline. They are stories of defiance, of successful escapes, of communities forged in freedom in the mountains. These tales are passed down in hushed tones, fueling a desperate hope. You listen to them, letting them ignite a tiny spark of possibility within your weary soul. You come to understand the seasons of hunger. Before the harvest, when food stores are low, the rations might become even more meager. After the harvest, there might be a brief period of slightly more abundant food. Your life is dictated by these cycles of scarcity and slight relief. The sound of the drum, when it is played in secret, is a sacred sound. It is not just music, it is communication, a call to the spirits, a connection to the ancestors, a heartbeat of your stolen culture. It is a dangerous sound to produce, but its power is essential for maintaining spiritual and cultural resilience. You learn to perform your labor with a deceptive slowness. Not so slow as to draw the whip, but just enough to slightly reduce your output, to conserve a fraction of your energy. This is a subtle art, a quiet act of sabotage against the master's relentless demands for maximum production. The presence of the chasseurs, the slave hunters, with their dogs and weapons, is a terrifying reality. They patrol the roads, search the forests, their mission to track down and return runaways for brutal punishment. Their very existence reinforces the constant threat of capture for anyone contemplating escape. You observe the varying reactions of your fellow enslaved people to their conditions. Some sink into despair, their spirits broken. Others find strength in quiet defiance, in community, in faith. You see the full spectrum of human response to unimaginable suffering. The master's generosity, when it occurs, is a calculated performance. Perhaps a slightly larger ration, or a rare allowance of time for personal tasks. These small gestures are designed to quell discontent, to create a false sense of benevolence, to reinforce dependence. But you see through them, they are merely crumbs from a table laden with your stolen labor. You become familiar with the different types of sugarcane. The white cane, the red cane, each with its own specific characteristics and processing needs. You are a silent expert in its cultivation, a knowledge you possess that the master himself does not, relying instead on his overseers and his enslaved labor. The language of the spirits, the elderly ways of Vodou, becomes increasingly meaningful. Through rituals and ceremonies, you seek their guidance, their protection, their strength. This faith is not just a belief system, it is a profound act of cultural and personal autonomy, a way to reclaim power in a world where you have none. The weight of collective trauma is a palpable presence in the habitation. Generations of suffering, of separation, of brutalization. It is a burden shared by all, woven into the fabric of your community. Yet within this shared trauma, there is also a profound sense of solidarity. You learn to recognize the subtle nuances of French spoken by the different white inhabitants, the crisp official tones of the planters, the rougher accents of the overseers. These differences signify their own positions in the colonial hierarchy, but to you, they are all symbols of your oppression. The lack of control over your own body is a constant indignity. Your movements are dictated, your labor compelled, your very physical being a tool for another's profit. This denial of bodily autonomy is one of the most fundamental violations of your humanity. You learn that even death offers a form of release. When a fellow enslaved person dies, there is profound grief, but also, sometimes, a quiet sense of relief, that their suffering has finally ended. The burials are often secretive, held at night, a way to honor the departed without drawing the master's attention. The constant sounds of the plantation merge into a dull roar. The wind through the cane, the distant thud of the mill, the calls of birds and insects, and always, the background hum of human labor. It is the soundscape of your servitude. You acquire a deep understanding of the land's bounty, despite its harshness. You know where wild fruit might be found, where medicinal herbs grow, where small game might be caught. This knowledge is not taught but learned through necessity, through observation, through ancestral wisdom. The threat of being permanently maimed or disabled by an accident in the fields or at the mill is a constant fear. A lost limb, a crushed hand, blinding by hot sugar. These injuries mean you are no longer productive, and thus potentially worthless to the master, leading to even greater suffering or abandonment. You observe the varying relationships between masters and their enslaved. Some masters are known to be slightly less cruel, others notoriously brutal. But even the less cruel ones are still enslavers, still denying your fundamental humanity. The system itself is inherently evil, regardless of individual temperament. The taste of clean, cool water, when it is available, is a rare luxury. You savor every drop, letting it quench the persistent thirst that gnaws at you from morning till night. Water is not just sustenance, it is a precious gift. You recognize the faces of other enslaved people from neighboring plantations when they pass by on the roads, often accompanying carts of cane or supplies. A brief glance, a silent acknowledgement of shared fate. These fleeting connections are a reminder of the vast network of suffering that stretches across the entire colony. The hope for freedom, though often suppressed, never entirely dies. It flickers in the quiet conversations, in the hidden rituals, in the fierce light in the eyes of a new arrival. It is a dangerous hope, but it is also the only thing that sustains you. You learn to endure the harsh sun, the biting insects, the constant fatigue. Your body, though weary, adapts with an incredible resilience. It is a testament to the sheer will to survive, even in the face of insurmountable odds. The concept of time off, of personal leisure, is utterly foreign. Every moment of your life is accounted for, every hour dedicated to labor or the minimal sustenance required to continue that labor. Your existence is solely defined by your productivity for the master. You witness the master's anxieties, his fear of rebellion, of financial ruin, of losing his enslaved property. He may seem all-powerful, but even he is caught in the anxieties of the colonial system. This does not lessen your suffering, but it offers a subtle insight into the fragile nature of his power. The constant need to be alert, to be aware of your surroundings, to anticipate danger, is exhausting. Your senses are always heightened, your mind always assessing threats. This vigilance is a key to your survival, but it comes at a profound psychological cost. You understand the importance of cultural memory. The stories, songs, and traditions carried across the ocean from Africa are not just nostalgic relics. They are vital acts of resistance, preserving identity, community, and the spirit of a people determined not to be erased. The sounds of the children playing in the habitation, however brief their moments of joy, are a precious sound. Their laughter, their games, their innocent voices are a reminder of life, of continuity, of a future that might one day be different. You learn to extract every bit of value from your meager possessions. A worn cloth, a chipped bowl, a rough blanket. These items, however humble, are yours, and they represent a tiny sphere of personal ownership in a life where everything else is denied. The very air of Saint-Domingue is imbued with the spirit of the enslaved, their suffering, their resilience, their dreams. You breathe it in, becoming a part of this profound and tragic history. The sun beats down with an unyielding intensity, a fiery orb in the endless blue sky, a constant reminder of the relentless heat that drains your very life force. Each day feels like a repetition of the last, a slow, agonizing grind. Yet within this monotony, the seeds of something profound are stirring. You sense it in the hushed conversations, in the knowing glances, in the way the air sometimes feels charged with a silent, unspoken tension. You learn to recognize the individual members of the commandeur's small, brutal cadre. Their faces are etched in your memory. Men who wield the whip, who shout the harshest orders, who betray their own people for a few meager crumbs of power. You learn to avoid their eyes, to stay out of their path, to make yourself invisible. Their cruelty is a constant, personal affront. The fear of being punished for something you did not do is a pervasive anxiety. The master's justice is swift and arbitrary, based on accusation, not truth. A tool might be missing, a task not completed to his impossible standard, and the lash descends. This constant unfairness breeds a deep, simmering resentment that runs beneath the surface of your outward compliance. You become intimately familiar with the cycles of the moon. Its phases mark the passage of time in a way that the master's calendar does not. The new moon, a time of deep darkness, often used for secret gatherings. The full moon, bright and watchful, making clandestine movements more perilous. These celestial rhythms become interwoven with the rhythms of your resistance. You observe the varying reactions of the different white residents on the plantation. The master's wife, often a frail figure cloistered within the grand case, perhaps occasionally venturing out, her gaze sweeping over you with indifference or mild distaste. The young, unmarried sons, sometimes more volatile, eager to assert their dominance. The various white overseers, each with their own degree of brutality, driven by their own insecurities and greed. They are a constant reminder of the oppressive system. The smell of the cane, especially when it's freshly cut, is a heavy, sweet aroma that fills your nostrils. It clings to your clothes, to your skin, becoming the indelible scent of your daily existence. It is the smell of profit, of luxury, of the very thing that consumes your life. You witness the constant struggle for basic necessities, the search for enough food to keep hunger at bay, the desperate efforts to mend tattered clothes, the need for even a simple piece of twine or a sharp stone. Every small comfort, every tiny improvement, is a triumph of ingenuity and perseverance. The songs sung in the evenings after the grueling work are more than just melodies. They are coded messages, laments for a lost homeland, prayers for freedom, expressions of defiance. They are sung in voices softened by fatigue, but imbued with the deep power of collective memory and shared hope. You join in, your voice blending with the others, finding solace and strength in the shared sound. You learn that even in this dehumanizing environment, beauty can be found in small things. The vibrant colors of a tropical bird, the delicate petals of a wildflower blooming by the roadside, the intricate pattern of light filtering through the cane leaves. These fleeting moments of beauty offer a brief respite, a reminder that the world holds more than just suffering. The threat of family separation is a constant, agonizing fear. The children you see playing in the dirt, their innocence quickly fading, are precious. You know that at any moment, a child could be sold, a spouse sent to another plantation. This fear makes every moment of connection deeply valuable, yet profoundly precarious. You discover the hidden resilience of your own body. It aches, it tires, it is bruised and scarred, but it continues to move, to work, to endure. It is a vessel of incredible strength, pushed beyond what you ever thought possible, fueled by a stubborn will to survive. The whispers about the Maroons are not just stories. They are a living, breathing possibility. Sometimes a person disappears from a neighboring plantation, and a quiet thrill of hope runs through the habitation. Their existence is a beacon, a proof that freedom is not an impossible dream. The sound of the sugar mill, when it is active, is a continuous grinding roar. The crushing of the cane, the hiss of the boilers, the rhythmic clanging of machinery. It is a deafening symphony of industrial exploitation, a testament to the insatiable demand for sugar. You learn the subtle arts of passive resistance, the deliberate misunderstanding of an order, the feigned illness that grants a few hours of desperately needed rest, the slow, methodical pace of work that just barely avoids the whip. These are not grand gestures, but they are vital acts of self-preservation and small assertions of control. The longing for water, cool and clean, is a constant thirst. The available water is often muddy, lukewarm, and rationed. You learn to stretch every sip, to feel the dryness in your throat, to dream of a long, cool drink from a pure spring. You become an astute observer of the weather. The heavy clouds that promise rain, a brief respite from the sun. The dry winds that parch the earth and heighten the risk of fire in the cane. Your life is intertwined with the natural elements as they impact your labor and your survival. The arbitrary nature of the master's power is demonstrated daily. His word is law, his decisions final. There is no appeal, no recourse. Your life is entirely at his whim, a profound and terrifying reality. This absolute power breeds absolute dehumanization. You participate in the clandestine Vodou ceremonies with a deeper understanding now. The calls to the LWAs, the rhythmic drumming, the symbolic offerings. This is where your true spirit finds expression, where your cultural identity is reaffirmed, where you find collective strength and a sense of belonging that the master can never touch. The lack of personal possessions is profound. A single rough cloth, a wooden bowl, perhaps a small treasured charm hidden deep in your clothes. These few items represent the sum total of your worldly goods, a stark contrast to the material abundance of the master's world. You learn to read the subtle signs of unrest among the white population, the tightening of security, the increased patrols, the nervous glances exchanged amongst them. Their fear, however, is your silent hope, a sign that the edifice of their power might not be as unshakable as it seems. The communal living in the habitation, though lacking privacy, fosters a profound sense of camaraderie. You share your burdens, your fears, your small joys. This collective experience of suffering and resilience creates an unbreakable bond, a true family forged in the fires of oppression. You recognize the specific types of labor demanded by the different stages of cane cultivation. The backbreaking work of planting, the constant weeding, the brutal harvest. Each phase brings its own set of challenges, its own particular exhaustion. The children born into slavery are a constant reminder of the continuity of your suffering, but also of the persistent spirit of life. You watch them, their small bodies adapting, their eyes learning quickly. You wonder what their future will hold, if they will ever know true freedom. The smell of smoke, from the fires used to burn the cane fields after harvest, or from the sugar boiling, is another omnipresent scent. It is the smell of destruction and transformation, of the land being prepared for another brutal cycle. You become deeply connected to the earth beneath your feet. The feel of its soil, the dust it kicks up, the way it responds to the hoe. It is the earth that provides the master his wealth, and it is the earth that bears witness to your endless toil. The fleeting moments of shared laughter, quiet and quickly stifled, are precious. They are small acts of defiance against the crushing weight of despair, reminders that joy can still exist, even in the most brutal circumstances. You feel the spiritual connection to your ancestors carried across the ocean with you. Their presence is a comforting weight, a source of strength, a reminder that you are part of a long line of resilient people who have faced hardship and endured. The dreams of your homeland persist. Vivid, tantalizing images of a life before this one, of freedom, of family, of belonging. You wake from them with a pang of sorrow, but also with a renewed determination to survive, to one day taste that freedom again. The physical landscape of the plantation becomes etched in your mind. Every field, every path, every stand of trees. It is a map of your confinement, but also perhaps a map of potential escape routes, of hidden places. The constant depletion of your body's energy is a relentless process. You are always hungry, always thirsty, always tired. Your body functions on the bare minimum, pushing itself day after day, drawing on reserves you didn't know you possessed. The distant sounds of the grand case, the clinking of glasses, the sound of European music, the muffled laughter, are a constant reminder of the vast chasm between your world and theirs. A world of privilege and leisure built directly on your stolen labor and pain. You learn the quiet language of solidarity, a shared glance, a subtle nod, a hand offered in support when someone falters. These small acts of humanity are profound in their significance, reaffirming your shared bond against the forces that seek to divide you. The sun sets each evening, painting the sky with fiery colors, a brief spectacle of beauty before the deep darkness of the night. It marks the end of one day's labor and the promise of another's beginning. You feel the weight of history on your shoulders, the suffering of generations of enslaved people, their hopes and their struggles. You are a link in this chain, a living testament to their endurance and their longing for freedom. The sounds of the night in the habitation are unique, the rustle of bodies on straw mats, the quiet breathing, the occasional cough, the low hum of a whispered conversation, sometimes a soft moan of pain. These are the sounds of your shared existence, of your collective survival. The yearning for dignity is a deep, unshakable force within you. It is not just about physical freedom, but about the recognition of your inherent worth, your humanity, which the system so vehemently denies. You learn that survival is not just about staying alive, but about preserving your spirit, your culture, your very sense of self in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a daily act of resistance. The knowledge that this system cannot last forever, that such profound injustice must eventually crumble, begins to take root in your mind. It is a faint, dangerous hope, but it is there, growing stronger with each shared story of defiance, each whispered dream of freedom. The air thickens with the unspoken thoughts of rebellion, of uprising. It is a dangerous thought, but it is also a powerful one, gaining momentum with every crack of the whip, every injustice endured. The quiet murmurs of discontent begin to coalesce into something more formidable. You are here. You are enduring. You are a witness. And in your survival, however painful, lies a defiant power.